One time I read about Cesaro, and he just won the US championship. And somehow something just like really drew me into it. And then I started watching it on YouTube, and I just binge watched the whole weekend of wrestling. I'm Michelle Green, and you can catch me on Sportskeeda Wrestling.
Whenever Michael usually gets in touch with me, our common friend Michael Morales Torres, whenever he gets in touch with me, he gives me an American time. He told me an American wrestler wants to speak to you, but gave me a Swiss time. So, can you tell me about your Swiss roots?
Yes, of course. Well, I'm from Switzerland. My parents are both Swiss. However, I did grow up internationally because of my dad's job. He worked as a diplomat. So we moved around a lot as a child, and this is how I came to learn five languages. And I fell in love with wrestling recently, like 5 years ago, and then I started watching and eventually become a wrestler. And I figured if you want to make it big in the US, you got to go to the US and learn from the best. And so that's how I ended up. My last stop was at Dr. Tom's at JPWA in Knoxville, the school of Kane and Dr. Tom. And now I graduated there and ready to take the wrestling world by storm, Swiss storm.
Amazing. So I actually saw a video of yours where it was you and Cobra saying, and
Mhm.
you were cutting a promo and stuff like that. So what made you choose to be a heel? Is that something that comes naturally?
To me, it does come naturally in the sense that as a private person, I'm overly sweet, so I will go out of my help to way to help everyone. And however, in business life, also you gotta make tough negotiations. I worked in marketing for a while, and there were a bunch of negotiations. And even then, you can't say everything that you want to. You keep the some of the things to yourself. And I find that being a heel is a good way to channel the witty thoughts that you had, but maybe weren't able to voice at the time. And I really enjoy it a lot.
Amazing, amazing. So, as fans, we have only seen one side of Kane, or maybe two sides if you consider the political career that he's had. Have you trained under him directly, and what is he like when he's? What is Kane the teacher like?
Okay. Um, yes, we have. We just perceived him as a very gentle, knowledgeable teacher. Dr. Tom is the one that leads most of the classes, and together they have the school. So it was really a great way for me to just create a solid base for all my wrestling knowledge, because I found in my travels through wrestling, I trained in Switzerland, I trained in Germany at WXW, I trained in Mexico with Skyday, I trained in Texas with Thunder Rosa, Jazz, and Rodney Mack. I found all these different tidbits, but it felt like there was like a connection that I was missing. So that's why I chose to go to Knoxville to learn the foundations of wrestling, were like giving you the structure to connect all these little magical parts together. And that's when it's now all really clicked and come together. And I'm very excited for what's to come.
Amazing. So, obviously, cutting a promo comes naturally to you, uh, and you're great at that. So, my point
Thank
is,
you.
awesome. So, I the kind of chemistry that I saw between you and Cobra Singh, it reminded me a bit of Zelina Vega and Andrade. Is she is she an inspiration of yours in a way?
Oh, absolutely. I think she's fantastic on the mic as well as in ring. I think the Selena lo hace todo. Of course, I also speak Spanish. The managerial role that I took on for a while now while I was in Knoxville came to be as when I'm traveling for wrestling every weekend or every day, I want to be doing something for wrestling. I can't sit still because it's my passion, right? So the first weekend I went there, I asked my classmates to see who had a show coming up, and I ended up tagging along with my classmate Cobra Singh, who has roots in Punjab actually. And then that's how I came to be his manager, then eventually leading to our mixed tag team at the end of November, and then into my singles career.
So, I mean, again, Michael gave me a brief profile of you, and he told me a lot about you. So I don't know how much you can tell me about this, but he said that there's a lot of interest from major companies in you. So it's up to you. How much can you tell me about this?
Oh, it's a very exciting time, I think, to be a wrestler. Clearly, I'm very willing to travel, and my goal, as I stated many times, is to make this my living. So I'm very excited just for what the future holds. Yes.
Thing. And what was it like training with Thunder Rosa?
Oh, I loved it. She's wonderful. What initially drew me to train with her is the fact that she had united a group of women that were all training together. And as we know, it's very scarce to have that in wrestling. So I enjoyed that a ton. She's very knowledgeable, absolutely passionate. She's extremely hard worker, and she deserves all the success that she's having and more.
So you said 5 years ago there was this turning point where you discovered wrestling.
Yes.
What was that turning point? Who did you see on screen, and what made you follow this passion?
I originally like knew of wrestling, but I wasn't following it. Obviously in Europe, like soccer is bigger, so I used to be like a Real Madrid fan. And but then one time I read about Cesaro, and he just won the US championship. And somehow something just like really drew me into it. And then I started watching it on YouTube, and I just binge watched the whole weekend of wrestling, and then just dove into it. And then, of course, for a long time, I was focused on watching WWE, but then started going to independent shows in Switzerland, in Germany, to WXW, which I loved. Went to my first two WrestleManias. And then, of course, as AEW and as my interest grew, I also followed Mexican wrestling. So I tried to like get a bit of taste of everything. And that's what I really just first kind of fell in love with it through Cesaro, because um, that's like what drew me into watching. But then more what kept my interest going was really the portrayal of the women that dramatically has changed, as we've mentioned many times over the last bunch of years. It's just for me, they're like these. I used to love Xena, the warrior princess, and it just kind of reminds me of this. They're just these badass women, athlete Amazons that I used to watch on TV, and now I'm striving to become one myself.
I have only been in Switzerland for I don't know, a day as part of a connecting flight. I
It
get
counts.
so how big is wrestling in Switzerland, and how much of a national hero is Cesaro?
In the Swiss wrestling community, of course, he's huge. And within Switzerland, I don't think it's within the first 200 sports, I would say. So it's very, 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 very niche. And when I was spending most of my time living here, I found myself explaining a lot for a long time, as probably most wrestling fan has. It's just, I always feel like when you take someone there to an event, then that's when they really understand it. It's just a form of art or media that is kind of tricky to explain sometimes. But I always say it's like a live action spectacle, and that people just need to come along and give it a try. And so definitely wrestling is bigger, of course, in Japan, in Mexico, and in the US. But we're, of course, working on building it in Switzerland. There's a school in Zurich, which I trained at, and there's a smaller school in Lausanne. Yes, so those are definitely, there's ways to become a wrestler in Switzerland. We have Oliver Carter that's in NXT UK also. So yeah, we're export country here.
So how do you go from binge watching wrestling on one weekend to deciding this will be my career going forward? And how did that whole transition happen?
Yeah, it definitely snuck up on me, you know. I first started training 2 years ago, and then about 5, 6 months into it, I had a knee injury, and they would tell me, "Oh, it's 2 to 3 months." Of course, with injuries, you never know, and I'm very stubborn, so I followed everything to a T, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna John Cena this recovery, 2 months back." And then took 9 months. And I was like, okay, it's terrible. Of course, I was always there taking notes in class. During that time is when I worked a lot actually on my characters and promos. Like I would spend 3 hours a night just practicing promos and recording myself, trying to get the reps in. And then when I was ready to return was when this pandemic hit. So I felt like kind of like the football kept being kicked away from me. I'm like, no, why? I'm just ready to come back now. And I traveled to WXW before, and it was for me kind of like a first step to seeing if I felt like this was something attainable for me and something that I wanted to achieve, because I always say like it doesn't have to be probable, it just has to be possible. And I believe that it is, very much so. And so I'm following this passion of mine. That kind of came to be that in November of 2020, I traveled to Mexico to see a friend of mine. And I had known some Mexican wrestlers already. And also WXW had connected me with Maestro Skyde. So I trained there. And to come to a country where wrestling is one of the top 3 favorite sports, that is just, it really warmed my heart. And I felt so much love and passion for the sport. And then already when I was on the airport on the way back, I was talking to my parents, and I was like, I'm going to come back, right? Like, I'm going to definitely stay for more than a month. And I was like, oh, no, don't quit your day job. This is terrible. Please, you have all this education. You've got a master's in marketing. No, I'm like, yeah, we'll see about it. And then I took a month of time to build up to the decision to then quit my job as a marketing expert and to pursue this dream of becoming a pro wrestler and investing my savings in it. So it kind of all was a slow burn, and then it really exponentially kind of grew, because I felt like for me during the pandemic, it also showed us just more how life is short, and to go after what you want without regrets, and to tell your loved ones that you love them, and pursue your dreams. And I was like, okay, it's now or never. Europe was closing down, so I decided to go to Mexico. For 3 months, I trained with Maestro Skyde every day, and it was a great time. And yeah, from then it's been just going forward. It's been a great journey this year.
So you actually quit your job during the pandemic.
Yes.
Very scary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always scary, but fortunately, also my boss was very he was like understanding. He was a soccer coach, so we had always talked about our passions, because it could relate with soccer, which I've also previously played. And I'm still working on getting him eventually to a wrestling show. But yeah, so that's been that was helpful, and them also supporting me, be like, yeah, okay, we understand. It's just, yeah. Yes.
So let's do some fantasy booking right now. You,
Oh, okay.
your dream, you against your dream WWE opponent at WrestleMania, and you against your dream AEW opponent at maybe Double or Nothing or something. Who are you
Yeah.
facing?
Oh, I love Charlotte Flair. I think she's the whole package, and she's very motivating to me. Like, I love the promo skills. I always loved heels also. She's superbly athletic, and so it's been always somebody that I admired highly. And for AEW, I mean, obviously it would be Thunder Rosa. She's a mentor of mine, somebody that I admire greatly. And so those would definitely be the top 2 women for me right now. Obviously, I'm open to anything, right?
But a complete baby face, a complete different character from you, Thunder Rosa.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, and you have been named by many people as the next big thing to watch out for. So, what message do you have for like people? Like, what can they expect in the coming few years?
Well, I'm very excited. Just talk to me on social media, or bookmichellegreen@gmail.com. And on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you can find me at I'm Michelle Green to keep you posted about everything that's happening. Of course, my goals are to to make a living out of this and to follow my passion. And I'm excited to see with who I can collaborate to work towards that goal.
So my final question: What? So we are all fans, right? So who was that one wrestler you met and maybe marked out, and you're like, whoa, I can't believe I'm meeting this person.
I early on had the advice of a fellow wrestler that was like, well, those are all your future colleagues. So behave accordingly. So inside, I'm always cool, calm, and collected. But yeah, I mean, outside, I'm very calm. Inside, obviously, there's plenty of times where I'm like, wow. I went to Houston to watch a AEW show, and I stayed in the same hotel with Thunder Rosa and my friends. And so, of course, you saw everyone there. That was very impressive. But I also just always enjoy meeting people that have already made it because it shows me that it's possible and that dreams come true, and just encourages me to work even harder to call them my work colleagues soon. And of course, I've also been to WrestleMania, so that was great too. I was there when the Hardys came back, and we all thought it was going to be like a New Day swerve. But then the stadium just flew off, right? So that was really a fantastic moment to view as a fan.
Yeah, can you cut a Michelle Green promo and tell the world what's next?
Yes, of course. So I'm the international Swiss sensation, Michelle Green, a superstar speaking 5 languages, brilliant and beautiful. And I'm the next big thing in pro wrestling. So you better follow me at I'm Michelle Green, and you see why all the gold comes to Switzerland anyways, and you see all the title shots and championships that will then come back home to this wonderful country. I'm Michelle Green, and to me, every day is payday.
Perfect. That was awesome.